Right. Hi, everyone. Running kind of late as ever. But what can you do? Oh, bugger. I left it over there. Hang on. You can see I'm so well organised tonight. I'm doing great. So good. Right. Hey, Loki, sweetie. Hope you're doing good. It's weird you not being here. I don't know how to feel about it. It's like it's weird. It's like, yes, there's lots of room now, and then also it's like there's too much room. And you're right, Brainless. Long time no speak. Same as you, Super Ghost. Hello. Mm. Yeah, how's everyone's day been? So, I actually made sure I found the stories in advance tonight. Oh, you're right, Mudbrooker, sweetheart. How have you been? I was about to say, it's been ages since I've seen you in the chat. Yep. VC is a NASA fake. CGI. Oh, I like lime. There, words. I like creaky. You're right, Troy. How are you, hun? Yay! And they're all small man friendly as well. Like I said, I'll let you know if I'm doing ones that like you need to put your headphones in for. And if he's there and he can hear me, you're right, my favourite little man. Oh, so with all that, like, done. This is from r/NoSleep, as I'm sure the title of the live stream kind of implied. This is from user Head of Spectre. And this was very recently. And it's I work at Goth Hooters. We have some strange rules for interacting with customers. I might. Oh, that's better. Yes. That works. Okay. Ophelias are popping up everywhere these days, aren't they? I mean, a few years ago, I don't think they were even a thing, but now there's at least 50 of them across North America. If you've never heard of them, let me clue you in. Ophelia's is a restaurant chain. They most they mostly serve pub food and cocktails, although credit where it's due, it's good pub food and cocktails. And it's probably the main reason why they've grown so fast. I've heard a lot of people call it goth Hooters, although I don't really think that's the best comparison. Sure, they've got cute waitresses, although I wouldn't really compare them to Hooters girls. Their outfits are a lot less revealing, consisting of a loose band tee and either black shorts with stockings or black pants, and flirting with the customers is highly discouraged. Although, oh, sorry, actually, they technically aren't even supposed to make direct eye contact with the customers. But we'll get into that in a moment. You're right, Al, you've not missed anything. Personally, I'd say it'd be better to compare Ophelia's to the Hard Rock Cafe. I think they've got a similar vibe, although Ophelia's has more of an 80s goth punk theme to it. The furniture is all black while the walls are white, giving the whole place a monochrome colour palette. The walls are decorated with some appropriate band memorabilia, posters of The Cure or Bauhaus, and a few black and white movie posters or stills. Think Nosferatu and the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. It's it's a bit of an odd vibe walking into an Ophelia's, but it works. Some locations even have a spot for some live music, and as I said before, the food is pretty damn good. So when the new Ophelia's that opened up in town put out an ad for a bartender, I figured I'd apply. I've got the experience, I had student loans to pay, and I'm partial to earning a paycheck which I can use to pay said student loans, and maybe if I'm lucky, I can have some groceries as a treat. Working at Ophelia's wasn't all that bad. Behind the gimmick, it was more or less just like any other restaurant I'd worked in. They pay us well and treat us well, so there wasn't really much else I could realistically ask for. Honestly, if it wasn't for the VIP bar and their peculiar set of rules surrounding it, I'd have said there was nothing even remotely special about Ophelia's. But there's the rub, right? The VIP bar and the rules surrounding it. On my first day working there, the owner himself, who I won't name for the sake of his privacy, sat me down to go over them, and they made it pretty clear that they took these things seriously. They're mostly there for both guidance and as a precaution, he said. Corporate really pushes us to make sure they're enforced. So just try to keep them in mind when you're on shift. I know that some of them may seem a little insane, but I promise you, they're there for a reason. I told him that I understood and assured him I'd do everything I could to follow the rules, and I meant it. Even if I wasn't entirely sure why they needed to exist in the first place. So, what are the rules for working at Ophelia's? I'll tell you. Lord knows I've read over them so many times I know them off by heart. They had them posted in the kitchen, behind the bar, and by the employee lockers, so it was hard to go anywhere without being reminded of them. Number 1. If a guest presents a black card, it must be taken to the bar and scanned. If the card is approved by our system, lead them to the VIP bar, which can be accessed through an unmarked door in the back of the restaurant. Number 2. If the card is not approved, Notify the management immediately, but do not notify the guest and do not engage in conversation with the guest. No new guests may be seated until the unapproved guest has been dealt with. Please see lockdown and evacuation procedures for instruction in the event of an escalation. Number 3. Please be familiar with the lockdown and evacuation procedures and review them regularly. The safety of our staff and guests is our top priority. Be familiar with the emergency exits and safe zones of the restaurant. Number 4. Only employees with a violet lanyard are to be allowed to access the VIP bar. Under no circumstances are you ever to discuss the VIP bar with employees with a violet lanyard. Rule number 5. Wait staff are not to follow guests into the VIP bar, even if invited. If a guest invites a member of staff into the VIP bar, they are to refuse and report the incident to the management. Neither the VIP bar nor the policies surrounding the VIP bar are to be discussed with outside parties. Violation of this rule will result in termination. Number 7. While on shift, you'll be given a name to use. You are only to use that name with customers while on shift. The name you are given must be used at all times while inside the restaurant. Do not give out your real name under any circumstances. Rule number 8. For your safety, do not make direct eye contact with any guests, especially if they have presented you with a black card. Rule number 9. If any guest requests to meet up with you outside of work or ask for your real name, you are to decline them. If the guest continues to persist, call the management. Rule number 10. If you suspect a guest has followed you outside of work, inform the management ASAP. They will decide whether the police need to be contacted or if the problem should be dealt with via another avenue. Do not contact the police on your own. And there's lots more like that, but finally, rule number 39. No waiting in my anus. Yes, no waiting in my anus. It is at full capacity. Not sure why that's up. Anyway, like I said, the rules were weird. No eye contact, using fake names, being encouraged to report incidents to the management instead of contacting the police. It all seemed a little suspicious. Then there was the whole set of rules regarding the VIP bar. They weren't joking about taking them seriously either. I'd seen the head waitress, Persephone, tear some girls a new one for flirting with customers or using their real names in the restaurant. I'd even seen her fire people on the spot. One girl got let go after she'd found out that she'd posted a picture of the rules online. And one of the bartenders, who'd started around the same time that I had lost his job after trying to sneak into the VIP bar. Persephone wasn't necessarily someone I'd describe as strict. If anything, she was pretty easygoing most of the time. But when it came to the rules, there was no room for debate with either her or the management. Speaking of the VIP bar, I didn't really know what went on down there, and neither did most of the other employees. But we had our suspicions. The main one was that there was something illegal going on down there, although speculation on exactly what ranged from a Breaking Bad style drug lab to human trafficking. Tamer theories suggested that it was just a meeting place for some shady characters or a harmless speakeasy that marketed itself by being exclusive. Either way, most of us had no idea what was down there, and the few of us who did never talked about it. Despite the secrecy, I personally figured that whatever was going on in the VIP bar wasn't anything illegal. Every Ophelia's I'd been in had one, and they couldn't all be drug labs. Plus, most of the handful of staff members that did have access to the VIP bar were bartenders. So that was at least implied that there was an actual bar down there. Either way, I never questioned any of it that much. The regular bar work paid pretty well, and the police had never shown up to investigate. So there was at least an implication that whatever was going on down there was fully above board. I was curious about the VIP bar, sure, but I didn't really think about it that much, and it rarely affected my day-to-day work. A few times a day, a customer would come in with a black card, and I'd scan it. When it came back as approved, and they always did, I'd show them to the door. They'd scan their card and go downstairs. They'd usually come back up in an hour or so, although if they were too drunk or too rowdy, the bouncer downstairs would turn them away. I never actually seen the downstairs bouncer, but I was told we had one. The black card customers never really stood out to me in any meaningful way. They just seemed like regular people going on about their business. Sometimes they'd come in groups, sometimes they'd come alone, sometimes they'd eat before showing their card and going downstairs, sometimes they'd eat after. There were some faces I learned to recognise as regular black card customers, and during the brief conversations I had with some of them, there's a lot. There were some faces I learnt to recognise as black card customers, and during the brief conversations I had with some of them, as they got a drink at the bar, they not only seemed pretty nice, they seemed normal. There's a lot of paragraphs in weird spaces. They weren't shady. They never acted like they were hiding anything, or like what went on in the bar. They weren't shady. They never acted like they were hiding anything, or like what went on in the bar down there was some big secret. They just seemed normal. And I think that was a big part of why I didn't question what was going on down in the VIP bar more. There truly didn't seem to be anything that off about it. The mystery didn't seem important or even like much of a mystery. It was weird, but the entire fucking restaurant was weird. They paid well, nothing seemed shady, I didn't question it, and everything was fine. Until Hector showed up. Hector Volvi looked to be in his mid-50s. He had greying hair, tan leathery skin, and a sort of weathered look to him, although his physique was damn near godlike. I could see his arms under his t-shirt, and it was pretty clear that he hadn't missed a lot of days at the gym. He wasn't a regular. I'd never actually seen him in there before, which is part of why I didn't pay that much attention to him at first. When he came in, he sat at a booth in Kitty's section and snacked on some appetizers. Calamari, by the looks of it. Kitty, which was her assigned name, not her real name, came in to check on him every so often, although Hector mostly seemed content to pick at his calamari and check his phone. At one point, I did notice him reach out to grab her arm and saw that she did pause to look at him, although I didn't think that much of it. If she'd had a problem with him, she would have told me. I'm not the toughest guy in the world, but I'm big, and I've got a deep voice. And I've been told I have resting bitch face, which makes it easy for me to come off as intimidating, even if I've never thrown a punch in my life. As a result, most of the girls usually came to me whenever they had a problem customer, and Kitty was no exception. I wouldn't have exactly called us friends, but we've got along all right, and I've always liked her just fine. Kitty was in her mid-20s with long black hair that she usually wore loose. She was a good-looking woman, and I'd had to step in a few times before when some drunk customer had confused customer service with a smile for flirting and gotten upset when she politely declined their advances. Since Kitty hadn't said anything to me about Hector touching her arm, I hadn't said anything to her about it and was willing to completely forget it until she came to me with a black card. "This is for the gentleman at 17, she said. I nodded and took the card from her before taking it over to the computer at the far side of the bar. The black card had a picture of the owner, as well as his name, Hector Vvednesday. Although any information aside from that was fairly scarce. No address, no date of birth. There wasn't even any logo denoting who the card belonged to. Just a red 4-pointed star in the upper right-hand corner, not a cross. This was clearly intended to be something else. All black cards looked like this, so Hector's wasn't anything special. I swiped the card in the computer and waited for the approved notification to pop up as it always did. Instead, a new notification appeared. Declined. Please contact management. My brow furrowed and I looked over towards Hector. He was staring at the bar, and I made a point to not make direct eye contact as I swiped the card a second time. Declined. Please contact management. I set the black card aside and reached into my pocket to text the boss. He wasn't on site at the moment, but I knew he could be in about 20 minutes. Kitty stood by the bar, waiting on me. "Everything okay, Daniel?" she asked. "It's declined," I replied, looking up at her. "Declined?" she repeated. "That can't be right. He said it's good." "Well, system says otherwise," I said with a shrug. Her eyes settled on my phone, and for a moment I thought I saw something in her expression. Relief, maybe? I was about to ask her if she was okay when I noticed that Hector had gotten up and was coming towards us. "Everything all right here?" he asked. "Of course," I lied, putting on a fake smile for him. "The VIP bar is just at capacity right now. I'm checking with the host downstairs to see if we can fit you in." "At capacity, huh?" Hector asked. He glanced at Kitty, but didn't say anything. "I'm sure you can make room." I'm sure you can make room for one more, can't you? Of course, sir. We're just making sure we can. If you'd like to have a seat, I could send another drink on the house. I figured that would be enough to get him to back off, but Hector didn't seem interested. It can't take this long to get an answer from the host, can it? He asked. Sorry, sir, they're pretty busy down there, I said. From the corner of my eye, I noticed Kitty rounding the bar. That was odd. She didn't really go back here with me. Really? Never seen them that busy, Hector said. He leaned up against the bar and smiled at me. That smile was unsettling. His teeth almost seemed like they were sharpened to a point, although even that description didn't quite suit them. That smile looked like something you'd see on a deep-sea fish. Why don't you just send me down? He asked. I won't cause a fuss, I promise. I'm sorry, sir. My breath caught in my throat a little. I looked around, hoping that someone else on the waitstaff would notice something was wrong, but they were all busy. The supervisor on shift, Persephone, was on the other side of the restaurant, currently busy. The management was out. I felt Kitty coming up beside me and looked over at her. Her expression was placid and calm, unsettlingly so. You're sorry? Hector repeated, his tone almost mocking. Come on, kiddo. At least look me in the eye when you talk to me. He leaned in closer, but I looked past him, right up until I felt Kitty beside me. I looked over at her. I looked over at her in the instant before she grabbed me, jerking my head to the side, trying to make me look directly at Hector. I was strong enough to fight her off, but not strong enough to fight both of them. Kitty pushed me, and I stumbled for a moment. Hector reached over the bar to grab me, and just for a moment, my eyes met with his. Relax. He spoke that word, and I felt calm. I felt drunk, almost. Look at me. Kitty helped me regain my balance, and I finally looked Hector in the eye. I knew I wasn't supposed to. I knew I shouldn't. I didn't want to. But I did it anyways. My body just moved, obeying his command, and my eyes locked with his. I could feel something in my mind, something moving, shifting, pushing me aside. Why don't we all go down to the VIP bar? Hector asked. Oh, and bring a corkscrew. We might need it. My answer I wanted to give was no, but those aren't the words that came out of my mouth. Yes, right this way, sir, I said. I handed him back his black card. As I left the bar, I paused to grab both a corkscrew and a violet lanyard from under the counter. The manager had left it there in case nobody else was available to open the VIP bar. I'd used it a few times before, although I'd never gone past the door. Hector and Kitty both followed me as I left the bar, and from the corner of my eye, I could see fear in Kitty's eyes now. I could see a fear in Kitty's eyes that I now understood all too well. She was in the same state I was, aware, thinking, but unable to do anything. I'd always thought their rule about not looking customers in the eye was just part of a gimmick. It was dumb, but they paid me to follow it, so I followed it. Only now did I begin to understand why it existed. Although, if this was why they'd implement the rule, what was waiting for us downstairs? I approached the door to the VIP bar and scanned the card at the end of the lanyard before quickly opening it. I looked over at Hector, holding the door open for him as an invitation. "You're too kind," he said. "Let's go downstairs and see if we can't find ourselves a room." Downstairs? We aren't supposed to go downstairs. We sure as hell aren't supposed to follow a customer down there. But Kitty and I both obeyed silently, following Hector down the darkened stairwell into the basement of Ophelia's. I could feel my heart racing as panic set in. I don't think I'd ever been so scared in my life. Here I was, completely out of my own control, and being led into darkness. Beside me, I could hear Kitty's shallow, trembling breaths. If I was in full control of myself, I would have reached out to offer her a hand. But I wasn't in control. We reached the bottom of the stairs. We reached the bottom of the stairs and found ourselves in a small white lobby with a bar and some small tables with a... God, my mouth is being annoying. We reached the bottom of the stairs and found ourselves in a small white lobby with a bar and some small tables with plush chairs. The bartender behind the bar at the time was busy with some other guests and didn't seem to notice us. Hector didn't even look at the bar. He just led us towards a long white hallway lined with black doors. At the end of the hall was another set of stairs, presumably leading to some other entrance, although I'd never heard anything about a second entrance to the VIP bar before. Beside the entrance to the hall, I noticed a large, dark statue of a spider with the torso of a woman. If I wasn't under Hector's spell, I might have actually admired it. It was taller than I was, and both grotesque and beautiful at the same time. It was incredibly well designed. It almost looked lifelike. The short platinum blonde hair on her head looked real, and I could have sworn that her 8 shiny black eyes were watching us as we passed. Hector stared at the statue and smiled calmly. He looked around before walking down the hallway, glancing at the doors we passed. Each one had a small window in it, allowing us to see inside. Looking through those windows as we passed, I recognized a few people who I'd seen going into the bar earlier. Most of them were regulars, although the things they were doing in there. Each of them seemed to be sitting on a chaise with someone else, sometimes a man, sometimes a woman. In almost all cases, they were bleeding, usually from the arm or the shoulder, and I could have sworn that our regulars were drinking their blood. I only caught a quick glimpse of what was going on. I didn't see enough to know for sure, but it was hard to mistake those brief glimpses I got as I passed by the rooms as anything else. What in the hell was this place? Because this wasn't like any bar I'd seen before. Hector paused in front of an empty room and gestured for Kitty and I to go inside. She went in first, opening the door. And staring at the black leather chaise before her. I could see panic in her eyes. She'd seen what I'd seen through the doors in the hall. And odds are, she'd noticed Hector's teeth as well. I think she already knew what was coming. You, in the corner, Hector said. But you. He turned Kitty around to look into her eyes. He regarded her with an uncomfortable hunger, and I could see her trembling in fear. Hector grinned and gripped the Rob Zombie t-shirt she'd been wearing, tearing it open with a disturbing ease. Kitty didn't make a sound, but I could see the tears in her eyes as he tossed her ruined t-shirt aside, leaving her in nothing but a bra and shorts. On the chaise, Hector said, and Kitty obediently turned to sit down on it. Hector approached her, pausing to sniff her hair as he sat down beside her. He tilted her head, admiring her unbroken skin for a moment. I could feel a rage bubbling in my chest. I wanted to hurt this man. Kitty was my friend, my colleague, and seeing her so afraid, knowing that he was going to do something horrible to her, it made my blood boil. But I could only just stand there, wishing I could help her, wishing I could pull him off her. I had no illusions that I could actually win against him. But if I could just stop him, if I could just keep him busy while she called for help. Very fresh, Hector crooned. I'm going to enjoy this. He opened his mouth, revealing his full set of teeth. I wanted to scream in the moment before he sank them into Kitty's shoulder. She whimpered in pain as blood trickled down from her wound, and Hector drank greedily, mouthful after greedy mouthful. He let out a contented hum before swallowing another mouthful of her blood. That was when the door flew open. I was almost relieved to see Persephone storm into the room, looking angrier than I'd ever seen her. That's enough, she snarled, and Hector looked up at her, a quiet fury in his eyes that didn't quite match her own. He pushed Kitty aside before standing up. His teeth were bared, and I noticed Persephone's lip curling back, revealing an almost identical set of jagged fangs. Whatever happened to privacy? Hector asked. Your membership was revoked, Persephone replied coldly. You don't belong here. Isn't an old man entitled to a meal? He asked. Let me eat in peace. I'm not even taking from your bloodstock, and odds are the girl will live. One sec. Right, sorry about that. Isn't an old man entitled to a meal? He asked. Let me eat in peace. I'm not even taking from your bloodstock, and odds are the girl will live. That's not the goddamn point, and you know it, Persephone hissed. Excuse me. Let me eat in peace, Hector said again, taking a step towards her. His eyes shifted over towards me. We wouldn't want to make a mess of this situation, would we? That bartender of yours looks awfully upset. Be a shame if he got hurt during this whole mess, wouldn't it? Even though he didn't say it, I could sense what he wanted me to do. I tried to fight my own body as it bent to his will, but I couldn't. I lifted the corkscrew in my hand to my throat and stared at Persephone with a wide, terrified eyes as I felt the sharp point press into my skin. Talk about pulling a cork, Hector chuckled. Persephone looked over at me, her eyes locked with mine, and I could feel something in my mind shifting, as if she was trying to influence me, the same way Hector did. Daniel, put the corkscrew down. My body didn't move. Yours is there. You're still young, kid, Hector said. When you get to my age, the control you can exert over people is damn near absolute. But it takes time, and it takes practice. Last chance. Back off and leave me to my meal. And they both get to go home tonight. Keep this between us, and I might even share with you next time. When's the last time you had a square meal, girlie? I could see a quiet defeat in Persephone's eyes, and the gears in her head seemed to turn. Fine, she finally said. You can dine here, but if you're going to... You can dine here, but if you do, you're going to abide by our rules. The staff are off limits. These two are off limits. I can get you better blood, as much as you want, but I need an assurance. I need them both to go free. Hector seemed to think it over. That's so, he asked. Room 4. There's a blood donor in there. You can have her, Persephone said, but the waitress and the bartender are off limits. Hector huffed before looking over at Kitty. Go, he said, and she immediately ran to Persephone's side. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she pressed her hand to the wound. Persephone grabbed her, holding her tight as she glared at Hector. Daniel next. When we get to room 4, Hector replied. Tell you what. Wait outside the door for me. He looked over at me. Keep that corkscrew where it is, and go outside with them. I'll follow. Persephone quietly escorted Kitty through the door, and once they were through, my legs carried me out behind them. Hector watched us go, before speaking to me again. Who else is out there with you? He asked. No one, I replied. It was just myself, Persephone, and Kitty in the otherwise empty hall. Where's the spider? I looked down the hallway. The spider statue that had been in the lobby was gone. I opened my mouth to answer that I didn't know. although before the words left my mouth, I saw it. Only now it was on the ceiling, right above the door. Hector saw the look on my face. He followed my eyes, and though he couldn't see what was waiting for him, he still knew it was there. Do you think you're clever? No, sorry. You think you're clever, don't you? He hissed. Daniel, kill yourself. My heart skipped a beat in my chest as I moved to drive the corkscrew into my throat. Then I felt something slamming into me. Kitty tackled me to the ground, grabbing me by my wrist to force the corkscrew away from my neck. Persephone grabbed me as well. In one fluid motion, I saw the spider on the roof move. They darted into the room, and I saw Hector stare up at them, with a quiet acceptance in the moment before their talons tore into his flesh. One moment he was there, the next he was gone, snatched off the ground and wrapped in silk. He didn't even scream. But I could feel whatever influence he had fading from my mind as I regained control. Daniel, are you all right? Persephone asked, as I hurled the corkscrew aside. My hands were shaking. There was a small cut on my neck, but otherwise I was fine. I nodded. She took a look at the cut on my neck before helping me up and going to attend to Kitty's wound. While she did that, I found myself staring up at the ceiling of the room where we'd been. Hector was fully encased in webbing now, and I watched as the spider on the ceiling secured their work. I wasn't sure if he was alive or dead, and honestly, I didn't really care. If he was still alive, odds are he wouldn't be for much longer. After Hector was gone, Kitty and I had a very, very long conversation with Persephone about exactly what the hell had just happened. A conversation that I admittedly still haven't fully processed. It feels a little dismissive to say, we've talked it out, and everything turned out fine. But in a lot of ways, that's exactly what happened. Kitty and I were both paid a considerable bonus for our troubles, and she ended up quitting a couple of weeks later. I don't blame her for that. We haven't stayed in touch, but I think about her sometimes, and I hope she's doing okay. As for me, I got my own purple lanyard. I already know what's down in the VIP bar, so I might as well do some work down there too. I'm not complaining. The tips down there are fantastic. You know, of all the things that people suggested about the VIP bar might be, I never would have considered the possibility that it was a bar where vampires and other fae who drink blood, such as Persephone and Hector, could feed off willing prey. Although in hindsight, that does explain a lot. Once you realise that the rules exist to protect the staff from any bad actors who might visit the restaurant looking for blood, they actually make a lot more sense. Of course, only those in good standing with the organisation that runs Ophelia's get to go there, hence the need for the black cards. Apparently, Hector had fallen out of the organisation's good graces. I can't for the life of me imagine why. I'm still not sure what he hoped to gain by showing up here and causing a scene like that. Maybe he was just that desperate. Maybe he thought he would stick it to the powers that be. Maybe this was just an elaborate suicide attempt. Who's to say? Either way, the management has taken steps to ensure that this kind of mess never happens again. There's been some adjustments to the rules. Now, if we have a problem guest, instead of just messaging them, we also message Persephone and we message Brenda downstairs. Brenda's the name of the giant nightmare spider woman in the basement. Turns out she's the bouncer, and if a problem guest makes it down the stairs, she's been given more freedom to make an example of them, if need be. On one hand, I think that policy is a little draconian, but on the other, after what I've been through, I can't really argue with it. And in the end, it really isn't my world down there. It's theirs. I don't need to understand it. My job is to just keep the drinks coming, and that's exactly what I intend to do. There we go. So that is, again, by the user on the user head of Spectre on r/NoSleep. I really like that one. Like, it's got the vibe of like Fantasia from True Blood, but not quite, you know? But you genuinely gotta love a consent-seeking vampire. Like, come on, that is pretty damn fit. I want to suck your blood. Please sign this consent contract to say that you are accepting of me. Oh, True Blood was good. I haven't watched all of it. I really need to like finish it. Oh, sorry. I'm getting a bit cringy. Ah. Okay. I'm going to read one more before heading over to Slim's stream. Okay. I searched my parents' names on the dark web. The video I found... Really already? I searched my parents' name on the dark web. The videos I found were horrifying. And this is by user Poem Scary 5. When my friends first introduced me to the dark web, I was amazed at how such an unknown thing could house some of the most illegal things on earth. Up until today, I had only used it for learning how to code and commit small crimes. But after the horrifying videos I just found, I don't think I'll ever use the dark web again. I first met my best friend Alex when I was a little bit... after I got into high... words, they're not going to... I first met Alex just a little after I got into high school. My parents had moved us to a new town and I had no friends. It was lonely at first, but I got used to it. We moved because my parents were paranoid after many murders occurred in our town. I thought this was weird, moving across the country over that, but I let it go. The reason Alex and I became friends so quickly was because we both had a shared interest in the internet and everything it had to offer. I was a gaming addict and a Tier 3 Pokemon sub, while he was more of a coder and developer. 2 years later, we were still best friends, but now we were much older and smarter. Alex had discovered the dark web and he was obsessed with it. He pretty much spent every hour of the day on it, searching through anything you could imagine. There was nothing wrong with that, but one search he made was the biggest mistake of his entire life. I remember waking up to dozens of text messages from him one morning. This wasn't normal. Alex wasn't a very social person, and it was very hard to get words out of him. I opened my phone to see what he had messaged me. "Dude, Jack, you have to come over right now. This is important. Jack, please wake up. This is urgent. Where are you?" These were only some of the messages, but the rest were very similar, with them all being urgent and that I needed to go to his house immediately. My parents were both at work still, so I went over to Alex's house. When I arrived, there were 4 cop cars parked in the front of the house, and there were dozens of people and news vans standing out the front. I made my way through the crowd, and Alex's mother told the police to let me inside. I could see tears rolling down her cheeks as she opened the door. "What's going on, Mrs. Gonzalez?" I asked. "Alex is missing," she said as she started to cry. My heart sank. How could this happen? He had just texted me earlier that morning. That was when it hit me. What if he was trying to warn me? What if his text messages were related to his disappearance? Still in shock, I walked up to one of the detectives in the kitchen. "Is Alex going to be okay?" I asked. "Of course he is. He's going to be just fine. We're going to find him very soon," one of the detectives responded. Something about that response was off. It was like I knew he was wrong. Deep down, I had this slight feeling that I wasn't going to see him ever again. I remembered the text messages, however, and pulled out my phone to show it to the detective. "He texted me this morning. What if this had something to do with him going missing?" I said swiftly. As he began reading them, his expression quickly changed. It was like it got worse. He told me they needed to keep my phone for now to investigate the text messages, and they said they would give it back to me later. I stayed around the house for a while, not just because I missed Alex, but because I wanted to comfort his parents. They cared about me a lot, and it hurt me to see them like this. His mother couldn't stop crying. Eventually, however, I went into Alex's room to see if I could find anything that might give a clue about where he went. I searched through everything, but found nothing. But I noticed something. Alex's computer was on, but his monitor was turned off. I looked for the button to turn it on and hit it. The screen lit up. My heart sank. He was on the dark web. Obviously, this was normal, but for some reason, he had dozens of different tabs open. I knew this part wasn't normal, so I closed the door and locked it and began going through them. At first, it was all pretty usual for him, but then things started to get weird. He had a tab open that was about an article. He had a tab open that was an article about a murder that happened several years ago. The article said that it was a woman who was found dead in her apartment. Her body was mutilated, cut up and covered in acid. I nearly threw up reading it and seeing the horrifying pictures of the crime scene. Not wanting to see any more, I switched the tab, just to reveal another article about another murder. Confused, I quickly went through the rest of the tabs he had open, and they were all the same thing. They were all about some type of murder or crime. The one that stuck out the most to me, however, was one about a murder that happened 2 years ago. First, it seemed pretty normal, but as I read further, I realised what it was. It was the murder of our neighbour that prompted us to move away. Confusion quickly swept over me. How did Alex know about this? I never told him about it, because to me it wasn't that important. I figured it must have been some strange coincidence. But then I saw the last search he had made on his computer. It was my last name. Horrified and confused, I quickly stumbled out of his room and back to the living room. "Is everything all right?" Alex's mother said, sniffing away her tears. Yeah, I need to go home for dinner," I responded. On the way home, so many questions and thoughts filled my mind. Why was he searching my last name? Did he think that I had something to do with this? That must have been why he was texting me so frantically that morning. If only I could just explain to him that I didn't do anything wrong. But I couldn't. He was still missing, and I had to find out why. When I got home, I raced to my bedroom and slammed the door. I loaded up my Tor browser and turned on my VPN. I knew what I had to do. I began typing in the letters of my last name, becoming more nervous after every letter. When I finally hit enter, nothing happened. It was just a blank screen. Confused, I refreshed the page, but once again, there was nothing. But why did Alex search this if there was nothing? I thought to myself. There must be something out there. I was getting ready to close the tab, thinking I had run into a dead end, when suddenly the page started to load. It took several minutes, but finally it loaded to reveal hundreds of videos. Immediately, I knew what they were. They were murders. But why did they show up when you search my last name? I considered just stopping right there and turning back, knowing the horrifying things I would see if I continued on. But I couldn't. I knew this had to be why Alex went missing, so I clicked on the first video. It started playing, and I saw what looked like a woman strapped to a chair in some sort of basement. I quickly recognised who it was. It was our neighbour from 2 years ago. I could tell because she had the same heart-shaped tattoo on her neck. She sat there for a minute, struggling, panicking, and screaming for someone to help. However, suddenly 2 figures walked into frame. At first, I couldn't tell who they were, but as they turned around to face the camera, my heart sank. It was my parents. My father was holding a knife, while my mother was holding a scalpel. They paused for a moment before they started what was the most horrifying 5 minutes of my entire life. I watched as they cut her into pieces and listened as she begged for mercy, screaming the whole time. Blood filled the room as they took her last breath. When the video ended, it quickly went to another, revealing the exact same room and chair. I had seen it before. I was traumatized by what I had already seen, and I knew I couldn't watch any more of it. My parents were murderers, and I now knew the real reason we'd moved away 2 years ago. I knew there was something off about that. I just never could have imagined that this was the horrifying secret that they had been hiding from me. This whole time I thought Alex was trying to accuse me of being responsible for these murders. But I was so wrong. He was trying to warn me. I scanned through more of the videos, each in the exact same room. I was just about finished, ready to go to the police so that I could tell them about what I'd just seen, when I noticed something. There was a new video uploaded today on the website. I quickly clicked on it and pressed play to reveal what looked like a man this time, strapped to the chair. He had a sack over his face, and I couldn't tell who it was. Once again, however, I saw my parents walk into the frame. My father walked up to the man and pulled the sack off his head. At first, I couldn't tell who it was, but then I realized who I was looking at. It was Alex. I did like that one, but I don't know. Just one or two things bug me about it. And one, even though it's the dark web, why would they use their real surname? And two, I'm pretty sure the dark web doesn't have a search engine feature. You have to know where you want to go or spend a lot of time searching through the individual things. But then again, I've never had the testicular fortitude to actually go on the dark web. So oh, that's all right, Mark, hon. No worries. Alex, who the fuck is Alex? But also, dude, you're killing your son's only friend. Come on, just hold him hostage so your son can still play games with him or something. God. Right. So, I might be doing. That's it for stories for tonight. Quick little like debrief, I guess. I'm probably going to start doing some games on here. At the moment, thanks to the amazingness of Super Ghost, who bought me Divinity 2. I've been playing that a lot recently. And we were talking, and he was saying how like it might be cool to stream it. So for the days that like I'm not feeling up to actually reading stories or something, but still want to stream, playing that might be good because it's still very storyline heavy, the game. Oh, yes, please, could you, hun? I'd really like that. And obviously, like, I just like horror games anyway. So, like, and wanting to play horror games was always a thing. So there's that. And I want to try potentially uploading videos to have like on standby for those days as well to upload. So we'll see. We'll see. I always say I'm going to try and do things and then I never get it done because, like, yay. Diagnosed and undiagnosed problems are amazing. Woo. But yeah, so if there are any games in particular people would like to watch me play, let me know. And if I have the money to get it, I will try. And obviously, I want to do something for Halloween. So I'm going to try and do something for the whole month of October. And obviously, with life and things, it's not always going to be exactly like in line with being like American time centric more so than normal. So I might do it during the day while little one's at school. So yeah, lots of different things. And also with mixed in with that, because October is not just spooky season for us Brits. October is actually also Black History Month, which unlike America, where they give them February the shortest month, we give them one of the longest months, 31 days instead of 28 or 29 if they're lucky. But yeah, so I do want to try and include some stories that are within that. So it might be more recounting the horrific histories that Black people endured or along those lines. So yeah, we'll see. I'm going to try and do that. I definitely want to at least do it once or twice for the month minimum, especially if I'm doing something every day. But yeah, and I also wanted to say, like, again, really big thank you. Like, thank you, Super Ghost, for the game, and thank you, Brainless, for like the nice little the nice little candles that you guys got me for my birthday. Thank you, because it was my birthday on Friday. I am now 33. Holy shit. Yay. Adulting. Fun. Horror Holocaust game. Oh my god. Yeah, that just sounds like a little fucking dark. Jesus. I know I'm old. So old. Oh well. I've got more experience. More experience, which means I know more ways to fuck up. Right. So it is time for us to go over to Slim's channel. Well, hang on a minute. So I've starred it, so I can't copy and paste from that. Basically, it's really tricky. So yeah, if you guys want to come over, I'm like, not there are 6 people here, and I'm not sure who. Just stay with me. 1, 2. Oh, but yeah, come join us over at Slim's, where we'll talk about weird things and stuff, and probably make a load of sex jokes and be weird and inappropriate. It's always fun. So I'll see you guys over there. Or if that's not your jam, I will see you next week. I hope you have an absolutely lovely rest of your day, and have a lovely night. Bye bye.